Stop everything. This just broke across the league. Multiple insiders are reporting that the New York Jets have pulled off a stunning trade agreement involving Shedeur Sanders, and Browns owner Jimmy Haslam is fuming. This deal came together in total secrecy, and now the question everyone's asking is, did Cleveland just lose the future of their franchise overnight? Stick around, because what leaked out of New York will blow your mind.
Evan Roberts of WFAN has had enough, and he's got the solution to the Jets' stinkiness and their problems.
Sanders from the Cleveland Browns. And someone tell me why that's a bad idea. And I don't want to hear about it's a circus. It's a circus? What's this? What the hell is this that we're watching? Bad, crappy football is a circus. The Jets should have drafted this guy, I don't know, second, third, fourth. They got a million opportunities to draft him. He has not gotten an opportunity in Cleveland. I don't really care about the Cleveland Browns, so I'm not going to fight their battles. I'll let Josina Anderson take care of that. All I'm saying is I see a talent, a guy I think we all talked about him as a guy that could at least be a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL. They are not giving him a chance in Cleveland. If I'm Darren Muji, I call up my contemporaries in Cleveland and I say, here's a 5th-round pick back. Here's your 5th back. Let's get Shedeur in here and let's see what the kid has got, because why not?
The line there of not giving him a chance, it's 6 weeks, bub.
I do like the circus line, though. I'll steal that one at some point.
I just think
what do you think?
The New York Jets are desperate, and when desperate teams start making calls, things get crazy fast. A major sports radio host just went on air demanding the Jets pull off what could be the most shocking trade of the season, bringing Shedeur Sanders to New York. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The Cleveland Browns aren't picking up the phone for pocket change. Jimmy Haslam and the front office just heard what the Jets are offering, and let's just say they're not impressed.
Yeah, the Browns are 1-5. I'm going to tell the mortgage company.
Show them.
I'm going to tell them, guys, it's not in the cards. Don't need it.
So I like the idea that other sports talk hosts in other cities are at least bringing up Shedeur as some sort of savior option, though. Like, I think that's in the rebranding of Shedeur to the rest of the NFL. That's not a bad thing for Shedeur to be labeled as.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. You're going to offer me a 5th rounder for my 5th rounder? Make it make sense for me, Evan.
No, it doesn't make sense. Not for the Browns.
Come on.
And I think the people that are playing it this way are they're completely undervaluing the idea that the Browns have like a plant. They have nurtured Shedeur Sanders. They've spent time with Shedeur Sanders. They've invested their energy into Shedeur Sanders. People would like more resources, etc., invested, but they've spent time with Shedeur. You're not just flipping that for a 5th to get back the same pick that you gave up for him.
Yeah, can we be honest, though? There is a price.
Well, and that's what I think a lot of people are interested in finding out, is what exactly is that price? How far do you have to go? And I don't think a realistic price is going to match up with where I would then say it would be. And I don't know about you, though. I don't know about you, because I don't know, like, realistically, no one...
What started as a simple inquiry has turned into a full-blown standoff that could change Shedeur's entire future. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to see why this situation is way more complicated than anyone's telling you.
I think, we talked about what the price is with Shedeur, and I think it's fair to say the Jets aren't going to call up and offer you a 2nd-round pick for Shedeur, but that's the price, right? If you want to play the game, you got to be able to pay the toll to get into the damn game, and the Browns are under no obligation to move Shedeur out of the kindness of their heart to appease the Shahive, to appease Evan Roberts in WFAN lore. Like, no. If you want to play the game, this is the cost. But here's the thing. There is a statute of limitations on this offer. If you're serious, this offer expires the second Shedeur hits the damn field. Because after that, there's no trading Shedeur. It also is coincidentally the time where his value could take a huge drop because of what he'll be playing around. But no, that's the only time Shedeur, if they play him and trade him, I'd be furious. But right now, he is a conceptual piece to me.
So let's set the scene here, because this is where it gets absolutely wild. Evan Roberts from WFAN, one of the biggest sports radio voices in New York, literally went on air and said, he's had enough. The Jets are a circus. They're embarrassing.
And I think their 5th was ahead of where you drafted Shedeur in the 5th. So no, get bent. Make me a real offer.
You got to pay the price.
Yeah. So a third, if we had talked about this a month ago,
okay,
maybe it would have been a third. Now, no, it's a second. And or a third and something.
So he keeps adding value despite not actually seeing the field.
No. The Jets keep adding desperation. So the Jets, right now, year one of Aaron Glenn.
Because if you're Aaron Glenn, right now you're looking at it and saying, if I don't do something, I'm fired.
Yeah.
At this point, he can't play out the rest of the season with Justin Fields and expect to keep his job.
Or you've put yourself such behind the eight ball that you'll be Brian Callahan next year. So I think it just makes sense. Listen, I don't really want to trade Shedeur. I'd like to see him play for the Browns this year, and it feels like it might happen quicker than we even realized before Dylan Gabriel took over. But, yeah, listen, everybody but Miles has a price. You can't trade Miles now because of the contract and because you had the opportunity to take the PR hit. You cannot do it now. Even if you could financially do it, it would be the biggest, most destructive thing you've done because it's compound interest on the Deshaun thing and the Baker stuff, right? So
they're unwatchable. And his solution? Trade for Shedeur Sanders from the Cleveland Browns. Right now, today, make it happen. Now, before you laugh this off as just another hot take from a frustrated fan, let me tell you something. This isn't some random guy calling into a radio show. This is Evan Roberts, a professional broadcaster who's been covering the Jets for years. And he's out here saying what a lot of people in New York are thinking, but won't say out loud. The Jets gave Justin Fields $40 million over 2 years. And it's looking like one of the worst decisions they could have made. Fields has been absolutely brutal. The offense is stagnant. The team is falling apart. And now, desperate times are calling for desperate measures. Roberts went on this entire rant about how the Jets should have drafted Shedeur in the first place. Second round, third round, fourth round, they had a million opportunities to grab him. But they didn't. Cleveland snatched him up in the fifth round. And now he's sitting there, not getting a real chance while the Browns fumble around with their own quarterback situation. And Roberts is sitting there watching this unfold thinking, why not us? Why can't we have him? Here's where it gets spicy, though. Roberts threw out an offer. He said the Jets should call up Cleveland, offer them a fifth-round pick. Basically, give them back what they spent on Shedeur and bring the kid to New York. Let him show what he's got. Because at this point, what do the Jets have to lose? They're already a circus, right? Bad football is a circus, so why not try something different? But hold up. Let's pump the brakes for a second. Because this is where reality smacks you right in the face. You see, the hosts responding to Roberts immediately called out how ridiculous that offer is. You're going to offer Cleveland a fifth-rounder for their fifth-rounder? Make it make sense. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. The Browns aren't a charity. They're not running a minor league farm system where teams can just come pick apart the pieces they want and walk away with a smile. And here's what a lot of people don't understand about Shedeur's situation in Cleveland. The Browns have invested in him. They've nurtured him. They've spent time with him. Yeah, maybe fans want to see more resources thrown his way. Maybe they want him on the field right now. But the point is, Cleveland has a plan with Shedeur Sanders. You don't just flip that investment for the same pick you gave up. That's insulting. That's a slap in the face. So what's the real price? What would it actually take to get Shedeur Sanders out of Cleveland and into a Jets uniform? Well, buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting. The consensus? A second-round pick. Minimum. If you want to play this game, if you want to pry Shedeur Sanders away from the Cleveland Browns, you better come correct. A fifth-round pick? Get bent. That's not even close. You want the kid who's been sitting behind Dylan Gabriel, learning the system, staying ready, building value without even touching the field? Then you better pay the toll. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. Nobody realistically believes the Jets are going to offer a second-round pick for Shedeur. Let's be honest here. That's just not happening. Teams don't hand out second-rounders for unproven fifth-round rookies who haven't played a single snap. But that's the price Cleveland has set. And you know what? They're under no obligation to move him. Think about it from Jimmy Haslam's perspective. Think about it from the Browns' front office. Why would they help the Jets? Why would they make New York's life easier? The Jets could have drafted Shedeur themselves. They had chances, multiple chances, and they passed. Now, they're stuck with Justin Fields looking like he forgot how to play football, and they're scrambling for solutions. That's not Cleveland's problem. But here's where this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. There's a ticking clock on this whole situation. A statute of limitations, if you will. Right now, Shedeur Sanders is a mystery box. He's potential. He's possibility. He's that signed baseball you buy at the stadium for $30. You might get Albert Pujols. You might get some random nobody. But the mystery is what makes it valuable. The second Shedeur hits the field for Cleveland, that mystery evaporates. Once he plays, you know what you're getting. And here's the brutal truth. If he struggles, if the Browns' terrible situation drags him down, his trade value plummets instantly. But if he balls out, well, then Cleveland's definitely not trading him. So this window, right now, where he's still a conceptual piece, where teams can project their hopes and dreams onto him, this is when his value is at its absolute peak. And the Browns know this. Oh, they know this. Now, let's talk about Kevin Stefanski for a second, because this is where things get really complicated. There's been a lot of speculation, and I mean a lot, that Stefanski isn't as high on Shedeur as everyone thinks he should be. His reaction after drafting Dillon Gabriel, that fist pump, that raw emotion, it told the whole story. He finally got his guy. Gabriel is Stefanski's baby, his project, his future. And there's a very real possibility that Shedeur was drafted over Stefanski's objections. Think about that. The head coach didn't want him, but the front office pulled the trigger anyway. Now, Stefanski's sitting there with two young quarterbacks, and one of them is his guy, and the other one, well, the other one might be the guy who saves his job or ends his career. Because here's the cold, hard reality. If Stefanski had his way, this entire season would have been about Dillon Gabriel. That was the plan. Develop Dillon, let him grow, build around him. But desperation has a funny way of changing plans. The Browns are struggling. Gabriel isn't lighting the world on fire. And sitting right there on the bench is Shedeur Sanders, the guy who fits everything Stefanski supposedly wants in a quarterback, but for some reason isn't getting the call. It's like Stefanski is treating Shedeur differently. If it costs Dillon Gabriel $1 to buy something from Stefanski, it's going to cost Shedeur $1.25. That's just how it is. The favoritism is subtle, but it's there. And Shedeur's got to bridge that gap somehow. Now back to the Jets situation, because this is where the plot thickens even more. The Jets aren't just desperate, they're in full-blown panic mode. Aaron Glenn is sitting there as a first-year head coach, watching his team implode, and he's thinking, if I don't do something drastic, I'm fired. You can't roll out Justin Fields for the rest of the season and expect to keep your job. You just can't. The writing's on the wall. So what does Glenn do? Does he swallow his pride and actually offer Cleveland a legitimate package for Shedeur? Does he mortgage the future for a fifth-round rookie who hasn't played a snap? Or does he ride it out with Fields and hope for a miracle? Here's the thing that makes this whole situation so fascinating. The Jets' desperation is adding value to Shedeur Sanders without him doing a single thing. He's not playing. He's not throwing touchdowns. He's not making highlight reel plays. But his value is climbing because other teams are falling apart. The worse the Jets look, the more desperate they become, and the more they're willing to consider rolling the dice on an unknown commodity. And Cleveland knows this. They're watching the Jets spiral. They're watching other teams struggle with their quarterback situations, and they're sitting on a potential gold mine. Because if one team is desperate enough, if one organization is willing to meet that second-round price tag, suddenly the Browns turn a fifth-round pick into a massive win. But let's talk about what happens if nobody meets that price. Because that's the most likely scenario here. No team is going to give up a second-rounder for Shedeur Sanders right now. It's just not realistic, which means Shedeur stays in Cleveland, and eventually, maybe sooner than we think, he's going to get his shot. And that's when everything changes. Now, let's be real about something that a lot of people don't want to admit. There's two sides to this Shedeur Sanders story, and depending on who you ask, you're going to get completely different takes. On one side, you've got Browns fans and analysts who look at this situation and think, why would we trade him? He's a fifth-round pick who could turn into something special. Why help the Jets figure out their problems? And honestly, that's fair. That's completely fair. Cleveland doesn't owe New York anything. But on the other side, you've got Shedeur's supporters. And trust me, there's a lot of them who are watching this situation in Cleveland and getting increasingly frustrated. 6 weeks into the season, and he still hasn't gotten a real opportunity. Dillon Gabriel is out there struggling, the team is losing, and Shedeur's just sitting there, ready, prepared, and not getting the call. It's maddening to watch if you believe in what this kid can do. Here's what people need to understand about Shedeur Sanders, though. This isn't just some random fifth-round pick. This is a quarterback who brings something different to the table. He's got the pedigree, the confidence, the arm talent, and most importantly, he's got that ability to rise above bad situations. That's what made him special in college. That's what makes him intriguing now. Special in college. That's what makes him intriguing now. Could he go to the Jets and immediately fix all their problems? Probably not. The Jets have way more issues than just quarterback play. Their offensive line is suspect. Their play calling is questionable. Their entire organizational structure is a mess. Woody Johnson makes Jimmy Haslam look like a model owner, and that's saying something. But here's the twist that makes this whole situation so interesting. Maybe, just maybe, Shedeur Sanders is exactly the type of quarterback who could thrive in chaos. Maybe he's the type of player who doesn't need perfect circumstances to succeed. Maybe he's got that special quality where he can take a dumpster fire situation and turn it into something watchable. Because let's keep it 100 here. Cleveland isn't exactly setting him up for success either. The Browns are a mess right now. Their offensive line has issues. Their play calling has been questioned. Stefanski seems married to Dillon Gabriel regardless of what happens. So if Shedeur's stuck in a bad situation anyway, does it really matter if it's Cleveland's bad situation or New York's bad situation? Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are we even entertaining this? The Jets aren't going to offer a second-round pick. This whole thing is hypothetical nonsense. And you're right. You're absolutely right. The chances of this trade actually happening are slim to none. But here's why this conversation matters. It reveals something crucial about Shedeur Sanders' value in the NFL right now. People are talking about him. Radio hosts in major markets are demanding their teams trade for him. Analysts are debating his worth. And he hasn't played a single snap. That's remarkable. That's the kind of buzz that very few players generate without ever stepping on the field. It means people see something in him. It means there's genuine belief that he could be special. And whether he ends up in Cleveland, New York, or anywhere else, that belief is gonna follow him. Let's also address the elephant in the room. What happens when Shedeur actually does play? Because eventually he will. Whether it's because Dillon Gabriel gets hurt, or because the Browns' season goes completely off the rails, or because Stefanski finally has no choice but to make a change, Shedeur's gonna get his moment. And when that happens, all these trade discussions, all this speculation about his value, all of it goes away. Because we'll finally have real tape, real production, real evidence of what he can or can't do at the NFL level. But until that moment comes, Shedeur Sanders exists in this weird limbo, where his value is based entirely on potential and projection. And honestly, that might be the best thing for him right now, because as long as he's not playing, nobody can prove the doubters right. Nobody can point to bad games or mistakes or struggles. He's still perfect in everyone's imagination. Now let's circle back to Jimmy Haslam and the Browns front office for a second. Because regardless of what we think about how they've handled Shedeur, they're in a fascinating position right now. They invested a fifth-round pick in a quarterback who, without playing a single snap, has generated enough interest that other teams are at least asking about him. That's a win already. If they end up trading him for a second or third-round pick, they've essentially turned a fifth-rounder into premium draft capital. That's incredible value. That's the kind of trade that front offices dream about. But if they keep him, and he ends up being even a decent starting quarterback, that's even better. That's finding a potential franchise cornerstone in the fifth round. The problem is, they can't have it both ways. They either commit to developing Shedeur and seeing what they have, or they cash in on the hype and move him for picks. And right now, with Dillon Gabriel still getting all the first-team reps, it seems like they're leaning toward the latter. But here's where Shedeur's supporters have a point. Cleveland's track record with quarterback development isn't exactly stellar. They've cycled through so many signal callers over the years that it's become a running joke. So when they finally land a quarterback prospect with legitimate upside, and then they don't play him, and then they act like a fifth-round pick offer is insulting when teams call about him, it feels contradictory. Either you believe in the kid, and you play him, or you don't, and you trade him for maximum value. This middle ground where he's too valuable to trade for anything less than a second-rounder, but not valuable enough to actually put on the field, that's where the frustration comes from. And look, I get it. I understand the Browns' position. Kevin Stefanski has his guy in Dillon Gabriel. The organization invested time and energy into that relationship. They have a plan. But plans change, circumstances change, and when you're sitting at 1-5, maybe it's time to consider that the plan isn't working. The real question isn't whether the Jets are going to trade for Shedeur Sanders. They're not. The real question is, when is Cleveland finally going to let Shedeur play? When does he get his shot to prove all the believers right and shut up all the doubters? Because that moment is coming. It has to. You don't draft a quarterback, even in the fifth round, to let him ride the bench for an entire season while your team struggles. Eventually, something's got to give. And when it does, when Shedeur finally gets that chance, we're all going to find out if this hype is real or if it's just been smoke and mirrors the whole time. My money? My money's on Shedeur proving he belongs. Because everything we've seen from him, everything we know about his work ethic and preparation and mental toughness, it all points to a kid who's ready for this moment. He's been ready. He's just been waiting for someone to finally give him the ball and say, "Go show us what you've got." And when that day comes, whether it's in Cleveland or somewhere else, it's going to be must-watch television. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just another fifth-round pick. He's a quarterback with something to prove, with a massive support system behind him, and with the skills to potentially change a franchise's trajectory. The Jets wanted him. They just weren't willing to pay the price. Cleveland has him but won't play him. And Shedeur? He's just sitting there, waiting, ready, and building up that hunger to prove everyone right. So where does all this leave us? The Jets are desperate and spiraling. Cleveland is holding on to Shedeur like he's gold while refusing to let him shine. And Shedeur Sanders is stuck in the middle of it all, watching his value rise and fall based on other teams' failures rather than his own performance. Will he ever get traded to New York? Probably not. Will he finally play for Cleveland? Eventually, he has to. But until then, we're all just watching this drama unfold, wondering what could have been and what might still be. One thing's for sure, though. Whenever Shedeur does get his shot, the whole football world is going to be watching, and that's exactly how he wants it. If you want to see what happens next with Shedeur Sanders and the Browns' quarterback situation, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Drop a comment and let me know. Should Cleveland trade Shedeur or finally give him his shot? Let's talk about it down below. Let's talk about it down below.